It was 3:14 a.m. when Laura Bennett jolted awake, her heart hammering like a trapped bird as her daughter's piercing cries sliced through the stillness of their cramped, second-floor apartment. Sophie, just 10, stood trembling in the doorway, her small hand clutching her arm, her wide eyes glinting with terror in the faint moonlight spilling through a cracked windowpane. In that dim, silvery glow, Laura saw it, a rash, raw and jagged, snaking across Sophie's arm, pulsing with an eerie, phosphorescent shimmer that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. It wasn't just red. It glowed like embers in a dying fire, each throb a silent scream that made Laura's skin crawl. Sophie's voice cracked. "Mom, it's spreading and it burns like needles." A sharp, chemical stench, acrid and alien, wafted from the rash, stinging Laura's nose, nothing like the antiseptic tang of hospital wards from her nursing days. Her throat tightened, her trained instincts warring with a mother's panic. She pulled Sophie into her arms, stroking her tangled curls, whispering it was just a rash, but dread coiled in her chest like a serpent, hissing doubts she couldn't silence. Have you ever woken to a moment where a small worry twisted into a gnawing fear, where the world you thought you knew tilted beneath your feet? That's where Laura stood, clutching her daughter, staring into the dark abyss of the unknown. Leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's step into their story, where one small sign unraveled everything. 2 months earlier, Laura had stuffed their lives into a battered sedan, its shocks groaning under the weight of cardboard boxes and grief. She fled a city where every street corner held the ghost of her husband, David, killed in a car accident 3 years prior, his laughter now just an echo in her memory. The loss had eroded Laura, her once steady nurse's hands now trembling under the strain of raising Sophie alone. Willow Creek, a sleepy town with ivy-draped fences, cobblestone paths, and whispers of affordability, promised a fragile new beginning. Their new apartment, a faded brick unit tucked beside a community garden bursting with wildflowers and tangled, dew-kissed vines, felt like a lifeline. Laura, 38, with faint lines etching her tired eyes, took 2 grueling jobs, waitressing at a diner with cracked vinyl booths and grease-stained menus, then cleaning offices under flickering fluorescent lights until midnight, dreaming of a stable future for Sophie. Her daughter, with her infectious giggle and sketchbook filled with butterflies in vibrant blues and golds, spent hours in the garden weaving flower crowns and chasing fireflies. But soon, Laura noticed Sophie's light dimming. Her cheeks grew sallow, her steps sluggish, her sketches less frequent. A small rash appeared on her arm after a day among the blooms, just a scattering of red specks, like spilled paprika. Exhausted from 16-hour days, Laura dabbed on hydrocortisone, blaming pollen or mosquito's bite. Her nursing training, buried under bone-deep fatigue, murmured warnings she brushed aside. Haven't we all ignored a faint signal, trusting it's nothing, only to feel a chill later, wondering if we missed a moment when the world began to crack? The rash didn't fade. It grew, carving eerie, swirling patterns across Sophie's arm, like ancient runes etched in a forbidden tongue. The itching was relentless, and Sophie's complaints turned frantic. She swore she felt something crawling beneath her skin, a sensation that made Laura's heart lurch, her pulse hammering in her ears. Juggling double shifts, Laura tried stronger ointments, her fingers trembling as she applied them, but doubt gnawed at her like a splinter. She was a nurse, trained to spot danger, yet she let the spread under her watch. At school, Sophie's teacher, Mrs. Larson, a stern woman with wire-rimmed glasses, caught Sophie scratching until her skin bled, crimson droplets staining her sleeve. The school nurse's call was blunt. Sophie needed a doctor, now. Laura's chest constricted, memories of David's medical bills flooding back. Thousands in debt, each envelope a jagged reminder of a life she couldn't reclaim. She hesitated, torn between Sophie's pain and the terror of financial ruin. Their neighbor, Eleanor, an elderly gardener with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of unspoken truths, noticed Sophie's discomfort one evening over chamomile tea in her cluttered kitchen, filled with jars of dried herbs. "That garden," Eleanor said, her voice a low rasp, like leaves skittering across pavement. "It's not as innocent as it seems. Things grow there that shouldn't, things that don't belong." Her words hung like a storm cloud, heavy with meaning Laura couldn't yet unravel. That night, Sophie woke screaming, the rash using a faint, luminescent fluid that shimmered on her sheets like spilled starlight, glowing like a warning in the dark. What do you do when the thing you dismiss becomes a nightmare you can't outrun, demanding you face it head-on? Laura sped through Willow Creek's deserted streets, her hands shaking on the wheel of their rattling sedan as Sophie whimpered beside her, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. At the clinic, Dr. Carter, a young doctor with a calm demeanor, piercing gray eyes and a faint scar above his brow, studied the rash's unnatural glow, his brow furrowing as he adjusted his glasses. Blood tests and a skin swab revealed a chilling truth. Not bacteria, but rare fungal spore burrowing into Sophie's skin, thriving in a way no medical journal had ever described. In a sterile procedure room, under harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed like distant insects, Dr. Carter performed a biopsy, his hands steady but tense, his jaw tight. As he probed, tiny, glowing fungal filaments emerged, writhing like living threads through Sophie's tissue, their faint luminescence casting shadows on the steel tray. The air grew thick. A nurse stifled a gasp, her clipboard clattering to the floor. Laura's guilt crashed over her like a tidal wave. She'd been a nurse, trained to save lives, yet she let this monster fester inside her daughter. Dr. Carter prescribed aggressive antifungals, his voice low but firm, warning that the source had to be found, or the infection could return, perhaps deadlier. Laura's mind flashed Eleanor's cryptic words about the garden. She confronted the old woman, who hesitated, her hands trembling around a chipped teacup, before confessing. Decades ago, illegal pesticide dumping had poisoned the garden soil, a secret buried by those with power to protect their profits. Laura's blood ran cold, her breath catching as she realized she might have moved Sophie into a trap disguised as a sanctuary. Have you ever discovered the safety you trusted was a lie, built on someone else's greed? Laura couldn't stop. She had to protect Sophie, to unearth the truth. She dug into Willow Creek's history, poring over dusty library records and faded microfiche under the flicker of a dying bulb, her coffee growing cold. She found evidence that Mayor Daniel Harper, a slick man with a politician's smile and tailored suits, owned the garden's land and had silenced reports of contamination to shield his sprawling real estate empire. Eleanor, once threatened into silence for reporting dying roses and wilting ferns, slipped Laura a shoebox of yellow documents, permits, complaints, payoffs, proving Harper's negligence. Laura allied with Dr. Carter, who, haunted by his own loss to a misdiagnosed illness years ago, contacted the county health department, his voice steady but urgent. Soil tests confirmed toxic residues, pesticides, heavy metals, seeping into the earth where children played, their laughter mingling with unseen poison. Worse, other kids in town showed early rashes, faint red speckles on their arms, their parents oblivious as they picnicked among the wildflowers. This wasn't just Sophie's fight. It was a community survival. Harper's allies, shop owners, council members, closed ranks, their cold stares following Laura at the diner, their whispers sharp as broken glass. One night, a note slipped under her door, scrawled in jagged ink. "Leave the garden alone or you'll pay." Fear gripped her, but Sophie's small, trusting face, still marked by that fading rash, fueled her resolve. She wasn't just a mother. She was a warrior, fighting for every family blindsided by lies. Whenever you face a truth so dark it forces you to stand taller, to fight harder than you ever thought possible. Sophie's rash began to fade, her laughter returning like sunlight piercing a storm, her sketchbook once again filled with butterflies and blooming marigolds. But Laura's battle burned brighter, her resolve forged in sleepless nights and tear-streaked prayers. She rallied affected families, their voices, trembling at first, then fierce, filling a packed town hall, its wooden pews creaking under the weight of their anger. Armed with test results, Eleanor's documents, and Dr. Carter's testimony, Laura exposed Harper's cover-up, incriminating emails ordering the dumping, payoffs to silent inspectors, a calculated betrayal of trust woven into the town's roots. The mayor's polished denials faltered, his face paling as parents stood, their anger a thunderous chorus demanding justice. The EPA descended, their trucks rumbling through Willow Creek, cordoning off the garden with yellow tape that fluttered like warning flags in the wind. Harper was arrested, his empire unraveling under charges of environmental crimes and reckless endangerment, his handcuffs glinting under news cameras' flashes. A remediation fund was established, covering medical costs for Sophie and other children, easing the crushing weight Laura had carried. Eleanor, once a stranger, became family, sharing stories of her own lost daughter over cups of chamomile in her herb-scented kitchen, teaching Sophie to plant sage and lavender. In their apartment's tiny yard, Laura and Sophie sowed a new garden. Clean soil, bright marigolds, a quiet promise of renewal under skies streaked with dawn's first light. As they worked, Laura felt David's absence, but also his strength and Sophie's determined smile, her small hands patting the earth. Isn't it humbling how hope can bloom from betrayal? How strangers can become family when you fight for what's right? Like Laura, so many of us have faced moments where small problems spiraled into crises, where we doubted ourselves but found strength in protecting what matters most. Maybe you've stared at bills piling up, wondering how to keep your family safe, or felt the sting of a system that judges before it helps. Laura's story isn't just about a rash or a corrupt mayor. It's about the courage to confront hidden dangers, to stand to those you love, even when the world feels stacked against you. Sophie's scar, now a faint, silvery line on her arm, is her badge of courage, proof she survived the darkness and emerged stronger. What's your badge? What challenge have you overcome that whispers you're tougher than you know? If you could plant a garden to mark your legacy, what would bloom there? Resilience, love, justice? Share your story in the comments, where your words could spark hope in someone lost in their own shadows. Your journey matters, a testament to the light we find when we refuse to surrender.